Hello and welcome to Business Spotlight. My name is Claudia Thompson, and today I'm here with Andy Edwards from 953 Limited.
Hello.
Welcome, Andy.
Hi, thanks so much for inviting me along. I can't wait to be speaking with you.
Oh, perfect. Well, why don't you start and tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, you sort of already hit the nail on the head. The name of my company is 953 Limited, and often people say to me, what's 953 all about? 953 all about? And they guess, and they make guesses like, well, do you work from 9 to 5, but only 3 days a week? Another guess was, oh, is that your hourly rate? I wish. No, 953, when I started this iteration of my business, I wanted it to reflect pretty much the whole of one's life. So it's that important to some of the stuff I try and talk about. And 953, according to the World Health Organization, is the average number of months you can expect to be alive. So 953 became my mantra. And I've had 727 of those, by the way. And so then people say, but I thought you were a motivational speaker, and that's depressed me. And I say, well, look, I understand that it's quite a serious figure. However, it's motivational for most people when they realize that the next full moon they see is 1/1000th of their life gone since the last one. The next paycheck is 1/1000th of their life or so gone. So when we would say we want to do things and we want to achieve things, it's got to be done between now and, well, that time that we no longer here. So I advocate positivity, focus, getting on with things, moving things along at a pace. Ideally your pace, but certainly less of the procrastination, less of the someday I'll. So 953 is all about you, all about life, and it's done through the lens of some of the things I tend to talk about.
Oh, wow. And you're obviously very, very passionate about what you do, and you build a business around what you love to do. But if you had to start from square one in business, what would you do differently?
Starting from square one, it's this wonderful benefit of hindsight, isn't it? What would I do differently? I think I'd probably turn the question around and say, what would I do the same? Because you talk about that passion. I do find curiosity in many different things, and I suddenly get distracted by something over there or over there. Oh, look, shiny things, and oh, look, there's a goldfish. Oh, there's a squirrel. So I'm very aware of that style of personality that I possess. So as much as anything, what would I do differently? I think I'd probably try and do less differently. I would do more of the same. I would concentrate a little bit more on what I now know works very well for me, which is down the idea of personality profiling, understanding other people. And I wish I'd understood what I mean now by the term I use now, relationomics, the idea that business, whatever else we talk about in terms of KPIs, money, turnover, revenue, all that stuff, it is predicated on the extent to which that business is able to create, maintain, and sometimes even repair relationships. Concentrate on that stuff, and the money follows. I wish I'd known that and concentrated on that 20 years ago. And I think I'd have been in a different position than I am. I'd be on my yacht in the Caribbean, I think.
Well, you still have how many weeks? How
Oh,
many
don't.
months?
I'm counting them off as we go. I had a very big, if anybody's a mathematician amongst you, you'll have worked out my months. I had a very, very big birthday not long ago, back in the early part of this year. So it has focused my mind on making sure I'm getting things done, the things I want to achieve between now and, well, I don't really know, but hopefully it'll be at least 1,000 months' time.
And on the back of what you just said, what do you think are some common misconceptions about running a business that people have, and how would you recommend they address them?
Uh, yeah, it does take a sort of particular animal to decide to run a business. Without getting too heavy into the politics, because I'm not a particularly political animal, but during COVID, there was a very specific decision taken by the authority, the government, not to support directors of small micro businesses. And I think it was based on ignorance. I don't think most people understand what it takes to remortgage the house to put into a business. It's not your job, it's your life. It's not what you do, it's who you are. So the idea of saying, well, we'll pay everybody 80% of their salary. Well, I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing based on the fact I was a director of my own organization, micro organization. And I don't think people understand that we're not fat cats, we're not tax dodgers. We are people who have to forge our own way. Nobody pays into my pension except me. Nobody buys a desk for me or a computer or hires software or rents premises unless I do that. And all of that stuff is quite onerous when you start to run a business with other people around you. And I think people who are employed, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, if that's the way you go, great and good on you. But don't ever think that it's not difficult to start. It is. It's a tough gig to start. And the people that you see who are succeeding have risked a lot more to have gotten to that position than many. So it's all about risk that people don't understand. It's all about paying out that people don't understand. It's all about harder work than you might imagine. And then putting a lot of that money that you earn back into the business in order for it to grow. So some of those misconceptions I think politicians have as well. And I'd like to see that change in the future with whichever flavour of government we have later.
Yeah. And you said there how difficult it is to start a business, but you've done that a while ago now, and you are successful. You're a public speaker. You run workshops. But what would you attribute your growth to?
That's a good question. And the idea of it's hard to start a business, I just want to qualify that. It's hard to be a success having started a business. It's quite easy to start a business, so you can do it tomorrow. But unless you've got somebody in your corner who has been there, done it, understands some things, I know that your own business is in that area, making sure people don't make the same mistakes 5, 6, 7 times in a row. There are some formulas out there. There are some ways of doing it. Many of us learnt by the School of Hard Knocks. But I think what has caused me to be successful has been literally that experience. Like I say, I'm not as few grey hairs. I'm not as young as I used to be. And some of the benefit of that experience that I've survived and thrived through, I now recognize is the reason why I've gotten to where I am. I'm fond of saying, and bear in mind that I was very young and it was a long time ago when I started work. But when I first started work, my annual salary, what I got for the whole year, is far less than what I now get paid sometimes for an hour of my work. So that difference, albeit over a fair few decades, is a bit of a concentrator for me to understand how far I've actually have to come, that I get paid for an hour as much as I used to get paid for a whole year. And that carries some responsibility too.
Absolutely. And it's probably a good reminder for anyone watching that, it's all, because I think sometimes people have a tendency to overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they completely underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years, for example. So I love that you said that, it's been a while. I didn't start like this. So that's a really, really useful reminder.
Well, I think it's learned. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's in any learning or developing environment, there are some aha moments, of course, and there are some step changes along the way. But you wouldn't go to a university for a 3 or 4 year degree and expect to pass those exams in the first week, month, or even the first year. So there is a set of learning that is necessary to go through, a learning curve, I think they refer to it as, which if you lean into and enjoy the journey as much as anything else, then the destination takes care of itself.
On that note, you're obviously very busy, but how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business, delivering on the promise that you just mentioned? So how do you balance your personal life with?
It's a great question as well, because I have a 15-year-old daughter and a lovely wife, Ali, and they are the reason I do pretty much anything. That said, I do love what I do. So there is a balance to be had. And that balance is not so much a work-life balance, but it's a life balance. I love what I do. People say to me, are you going to retire? And I say, is that a request? No, no. The answer is no. I don't intend to stop doing this work, because remember what I said earlier on about when you start and own your own business, certainly if you're very much part of the delivery of that, which I am, then it's not, this stuff is not what I do. This is who I am. So if I decide to retire, that would be indicative of stopping being who I am. So that's not going to happen. So I do recognize that there's a period of time over which I can be who I am as a business person, but I'm also very cognizant and aware that I'm also a father, I'm a friend, I'm a husband. I have a number of different roles. So I think the balance happens over a period of time, not on any given day. On any given day, I might be a terrible father in as much as I'm away from home. And I haven't spoken to Rosie, my daughter, for a couple of days. It's a terrible father, but I'm being 100% a businessman at that time. When I'm with Rosie, I am not answering emails. That's my daughter, by the way. I'm not answering emails. I'm not trying to get more gigs. I'm not being a businessman. I'm a terrible businessman when I'm with Rosie because I'm being a dad. When I'm with my wife, I'm being a terrible friend because I'm eschewing the lads' night out with the boys and having a few drinks because I'm with my lady, with my wife, 100%. So I think that balance happens over a period of time rather than at any given point. The trick to that, I believe, and it's only a relatively recent thing I found out, certainly in the last 5 years or so, is the balance happens over a period. Do who and what you are in the moment, recognizing that when you do other moments, you're 100% committed to that particular role at that particular time. If you want a recipe for disaster, try and do all of them at the same time, and that's when people get out of balance.
Yeah, and a lot of business owners that I speak to, they sit at home at the dinner table with their family because they feel that's something they should do, they have to do, but in their mind they're still like, oh, I need to call this person, need to do this, need to do. So 100% present in the role that you are in is your
if you can. And part of the deal is, if you're not in that situation, then the only person can get yourself out of that situation, because you got yourself into it, is the person in the mirror. Because I do some coaching with some of the chief executives that I speak for, and they have created a situation where they afford a wonderful life, a beautiful house and cars and bits and pieces, but have no time to enjoy any of that because they're too busy maintaining the funding that's going to go into affording that life. That's unbalanced. How about saying, no, we've got about 1,000 months. I've had 600 of those. I'm going to change everything from this point forward and make sure that there are other roles that I'm committing to at 100%, because that's part of the enjoyment.
Very powerful, and actually gave me goosebumps.
Oh,
so you coach a lot of, as you said, a lot of CEOs and help them get to any team challenges they might experience. What do you think, from your experience, are people's biggest learnings about being an employer? So when they first go from this, I'm a team of 1 to a team of 2, a team of 3, a team of 10. So what do you think are their biggest learnings?
As finding yourself in charge of that team all of a sudden by virtue of your success. Yeah, happens a lot. Or it happens because you're very good at your job. You get promoted to being a leader with no idea. It's a bit like walking onto an aeroplane and hearing a noise from the cockpit, opening the cockpit door, and there's the pilot, and she says, oh, I was a cabin crew yesterday, but I was a really good cabin crew and they promoted me to pilot. I'll make it up as I go along. Well, you're off the plane, aren't you? It's a very different and discrete set of skills to be a leader. And I think that if somebody finds themselves has people in their charge, in charge of other people, in that traditional management and leadership sense of the word, then I think they should start to work out and be as good at leadership and management as they are at whatever it is they were successful about in the first place. Because if they don't, the disconnect is amazing. My book, which has got a naughty title, which I'll let people find out about if they want to, it actually cites a CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personality Development, survey done a little while ago. where senior leaders were asked if they believed themselves to be trusted or very trusted. 95% of senior leaders believe themselves to be trusted or very trusted. The survey then went to the followers and said, do you trust your senior leaders? 16% said trusted or very trusted. That is almost a delusional gap as far as leadership is concerned. My book that I wrote is all about that gap. And why does it exist? Because we wouldn't put up with it in any other aspect of business. Why are we happy to put up with such a delusional gap? 95% belief down to 16% reality. It's a huge gap. And that's something that I think leaders need to take into account.
Yeah. Wow. And we put the link in the descriptions to your stuff.
Oh, thank you.
No, to your book. And yeah, it does. I mean, we spoke briefly before the interview, and it definitely it's on my shopping list already.
Nice.
Because it
Good
just
Christmas
really,
reading for you.
really interesting. And do you think, or are there any general tips that you could think of that employers can use to foster a more positive and productive work environment? So maybe even if they feel, oh, maybe I'm not 100% trusted, how can they make the workplace a better place for their employees?
Yeah, and that's exactly the route in. Get your employers to trust you. Build the trust. It's why I call it relationomics, because the extent to which a business can create, maintain, and repair exemplary relationships. And one of the most important relationships is the relationship that employers have with their immediate and onward superiors, their managers, their leaders, if you will. So as a leader, as somebody who's in charge of other people, then my immediate suggestion would be you use some of that time to create, maintain, and repair the relationships. Build a relationship with these people. Quite often I'll go into an organization and they'll give me a couple of problems that are going on, especially around a couple of individuals classically. And I'll say, so what are these people saying in their one-to-ones with you? And they say, oh, we don't do one-to-ones. And I'll say, yeah, I can tell. Because what you're not doing is you're not building up a relationship. I believe there are 7 fails of leadership, one of which is not saying thank you enough. There are 6 others. The other one, I think is hugely important, is not having regular ring-fenced time with an individual, one-to-one. And if you do put that in the diary, stop cancelling it. Stop. Really, it basically tells the follower, look, something more important's come up. Something more important than you is happening in my life over here in business. Now, there's nobody more important than the person in your charge, and that will start to develop a negative impact unless and until you're having those one-to-ones. So my advice would be, yeah, one-to-ones. Make sure you build those relationships.
Yeah, and yeah, I can only just agree with that. How many people that I speak to have no idea what their employees want, what they need to feel appreciated, what's going on in their home life that maybe might affect their work. So yeah, absolutely. 100% on what you just said.
It's obvious to us. It just needs to be obvious to them.
Yeah. Well, we're spreading the message.
If you don't know why somebody comes to work in your charge, if you don't know why they come to work and you're trying to motivate them, how the hell can you tap into the existing motivation of that person if, for instance, they're not ambitious? They just want to do a damn good job. And you would need to be there to help them. If you're saying, oh, you could be a supervisor in a couple of years' time, and they go, I'm not interested. So why are you trying to motivate somebody with something that is pointless? Understand that person. It's relationomics.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, that sums up our interview. Thank you so much for your time today. It was really, really lovely to hear all about your messages. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people took a lot of little nuggets away. As I said, I put all the links in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for letting me have my passion, because that's what it is.
Perfect.
Bye for now.
All right.